XRP, the Ethereum killer. Now, I couldn't believe my ears when I heard that. Someone claimed that XRP's next big move could dethrone Ethereum to become number 2. And I just had to find out if there was any truth to it. So I went digging on this little kind of crypto adventure. I dug into decade-old charts, chased down wild predictions on Twitter, and even stumbled into a completely different crypto rabbit hole along the way. So by the end of this story, you're going to know exactly why people are saying that XRP might just shock Ethereum. And, what the data actually shows, and what I discovered that nobody else is actually talking about. So trust me here, this ride is going to be full of surprises. So stick around, because the answer isn't what you think. Now, before we get rolling, I need to say this loud and clear. This might just shock you as well, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses. And this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, we had to get that out of the way, so now we can get into the story. And it all started with a legendary trader, Peter Brandt. Now, he posted a chart of XRP's price history that kind of blew my mind. Now this chart, it spans over a decade of XRP's ups and downs. And here's the crazy part. It showed a pattern so clean that it almost looked fake. Now, Brandt himself said that XRP's chart is one of the most technically pure long-term charts in the crypto market. Now, coming from a veteran like him, that is a pretty big deal. Now, I'm talking textbook symmetry. Like XRP has been following the script of this for years. Let me break this down. Now, according to Brandt's chart, XRP has gone through 3 major cycles, and each time that it had followed a very similar rhythm. The first cycle, which is 2017 to 2017, XRP's price mostly flatlined for years. Boring, nobody really cared, and then boom. In 2017, it erupted, skyrocketing over 70,000% during that bull run. And yes, you heard that right, 70,000%. That was not a typo. So if you had bought XRP at a fraction of a penny back then you became ridiculously wealthy within just months. It was wild. Second cycle, this is 2018 through to 2024. After the 2018 peak, XRP went into another long hibernation, slowly drifting downwards in this big descending triangle pattern for years. It kind of felt like XRP was just sleeping, right? Many people wrote it off. But late 2024, it happened again. Another breakout. XRP shot up roughly 600% during that move. Not as insane as 2017's run, but still, a 6x gain woke a whole lot of people up. Now, if you were watching charts last year, you know that XRP suddenly went from around 50 cents to over $3 in what felt like a blink of an eye. It was déjà vu. Now, here we are in the third cycle, 2024-2025. And guess what? The pattern looks like it's repeating once more. XRP had its breakout. It hit a peak of around $3.66 and then pulled back. Lately, it's been consolidating, basically catching its breath between roughly $2.60 and $2.80. Now, if Brandt's pattern holds true here, this might be just the eye of the storm before the next big jump. Now, market watchers, myself included, are buzzing that another parabolic move might be just around the corner. It's like seeing storm clouds and wondering if a tornado is about to touch down. Now, the chart is saying maybe, just maybe, round 3 is coming. And XRP's uncanny adherence to these patterns makes it a textbook case for long-term market rhythm. Now, it's almost poetic, right? Like XRP has this heartbeat that speeds up every few years. So, at this point, I'm pretty excited, right? I mean, who wouldn't be? If history is actually repeating itself, then we could see XRP ripping upwards once again. And that's when I see this comment from 𝗗𝗗𝘀𝗶𝘱, a well-known XRP community voice, and he drops the line that triggered the whole video. 𝗀𝗶𝘱 said, "The next leg up on XRP will be the Ethereum killer." Pretty bold words, right? The Ethereum killer. Well, that phrase kind of hit me like a truck. He's essentially suggesting that in XRP's next big pump, it could overtake Ethereum in the crypto rankings. That could make XRP the number 2 cryptocurrency in the world by market cap, second only to Bitcoin. Okay, so let's think about that for a second. XRP leapfrogging Ethereum. It's the kind of claim that normally lives in Reddit rumors and wild YouTube thumbnails, right? Yet here's someone in the XRP community saying it out loud. Now, I'll admit, I'm a skeptic kind of side, at least my skeptic side kind of rolled its own eyes, right? Because really, Ethereum is pretty big, it's a giant, and home of DeFi, NFTs, and you name it, right? So how could XRP, which is mostly known for banking and payments, actually take that spot? It sounded a little far-fetched, right? But then my curious side kicked in and said, let's not dismiss it. Let's actually crunch the numbers, and so I did. First, the math. Now, at the time of this claim, XRP's market cap was around $147 billion, while Ethereum was roughly $480 billion. So Ethereum was more than 3 times larger. Now, for XRP to flip Ethereum, well, XRP's price would have to go up a fair bit, and I mean a reasonable amount, without Ethereum even rising in value. Specifically, XRP would need to surge something like 230% from its current price, which was about $2.46 at the time, to somewhere near the $8 per coin. So $8 per XRP is kind of like a holy grail of a number that's been thrown around before in the community. It's pretty huge. We've never really seen XRP that high, right? Previous all-time high was $3.84 back in early 2018. So we're talking more than double of its previous all-time high. It's kind of a tall order, absolutely, right? But in crypto, crazy things can happen. A 230% gain isn't exactly unheard of in a bull cycle, especially if the momentum and FOMO really does kick on in. However, here is the big catch. That whole scenario, it assumes that Ethereum's price stays flat. And guess what? Ethereum is not staying flat. In fact, recently Ethereum has been on a bit of a tear of its own. Just a couple of months ago, Ethereum hit a new all-time high of around $4,950. That was after it had been kind of sluggish for a while. Now, from its lows in April of around $1,385, Ethereum exploded 239% to nearly 5K. Now, that's like Ethereum saying, hey, don't forget about me. When I saw that, of course, I realized that XRP's job just got a hell of a lot harder. If Ethereum continues rising, that target keeps on moving, right? It's kind of like trying to catch a moving train. The faster that Ethereum goes, the faster XRP would need to run in order to catch up. Now, none of this is to say that XRP can't have a massive run. It definitely can, and I'm optimistic that it will, right? I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't think XRP had big potential. But overtaking Ethereum specifically, well, that's where even some die-hard XRP supporters pump on the brakes. Because in late 2024 and early 2025, when XRP was shooting up 6x, there was a genuine hype that XRP might become number 2 again. And yes, I say again because it actually happened once before, briefly, back in January of 2018 for just a minute. Now, XRP's market cap did actually surpass Ethereum's back then, and I remember that day. It was kind of mayhem on crypto Twitter, and the XRP army was, of course, ecstatic. Ethereum folks were in disbelief, right? Because, how dare they, right? It was kind of like witnessing a sports underdog team briefly take on the lead against a championship team. Now, of course, it didn't last very long. Ethereum regained that spot pretty quickly. But that memory has planted a seed in the community, the idea that the flippening, if you will, as they kind of call it, is not impossible. Fast forward to now, after Ethereum's recent surge, and some analysts who once predicted XRP could overtake ETH have changed their tune. Right? There's an analyst called 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗍. He was actually bullish on the flippening idea earlier, but after seeing Ethereum's strength, he kind of reversed his stance. He now says, realistically, maybe XRP might only climb about another 2.5x from where it was, which, would still be behind Ethereum. Now, in plainer terms here, if XRP were $2, at the time, then 𝗗𝗗𝗀𝗋, thinks maybe $5 to $6 is achievable this cycle, which just isn't enough to kind of topple Ethereum. And he has a point to a degree. Even if XRP hit, let's say, $6 and Ethereum also doubled to, let's say, 10K, hypothetically, Ethereum would still be ahead by a larger margin. Right now, 𝗗𝗗𝗀𝗋𝗋 actually kind of cautioned against getting overly optimistic and basically said it's wise to hold both ETH and XRP rather than betting everything on one flipping the other. And honestly, it sounded reasonable advice. Why not have both? I know I do. Another respected voice, this is an attorney and XRP advocate, Bill Morgan, chimed in and said he doesn't see a flippening this cycle. Now, in this bull run, of course, but he doesn't rule it out in the future, right? Not this cycle, he tweeted, but XRP will, not overtake ETH. Short and kind of sweet. No hopium, just be real about it, right? And I kind of appreciate that candor to a degree. It doesn't mean XRP is bad or anything like that. It just means that Ethereum is currently that far ahead. Now, Bill's view is basically maybe one day, but not today. So here's me taking all of this in as an XRP holder myself. And yes, I do hold XRP and I've got skin in the game. I feel a little bit like I'm on a roller coaster of emotions reading all of this. On one hand, I can see this beautiful chart pattern and I can hear bold predictions, and I'm pretty pumped for it. And I mean, who wouldn't love to see XRP rocket to the moon and grab that number 2 spot, right? Now, it would be a historical moment in crypto, the underdog finally catching up, and it's kind of stuff of legend. But on the other hand, you've got the pragmatic voices of 𝗗𝗗𝗀𝗋𝗋 and Bill Morgan that are saying things like temper your expectations. It's kind of like having an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other. One whispering XRP to the moon, baby, and the other one saying chill, be realistic. So, where do I sit with this? Well, it's actually quite an interesting one, because outside of just these kind of voices and the context of this particular video, there are other things that are happening in the space. Right? We do know that Ethereum already has Ethereum spot ETFs, and they've pulled in reasonable amounts of money, and that is why we have seen Ethereum hitting new all-time highs. We also note that there are some applications for XRP spot ETFs, which are likely to get approved in my humble opinion. And as a result of that, we are going to see money, institutional money, flowing into XRP. That's going to soak up some of the supply. Now, that's really important to understand because outside of Wall Street and these ETF kind of narratives in terms of catalyst, there are some other things happening more inside the crypto realm itself, such as the dwindling supply of XRP on crypto exchanges. And this is a huge factor for the supply-demand mechanics of how price moves. So we have to note that market cap is just a byproduct of the price, right? Market cap itself is no barrier to price discovery because the price dictates the market cap, right? If the market cap were to be a barrier, well, then obviously you get a circular calculation, right? If the market cap is stopping the price, but the price is what's controlling the market cap, it just goes around in a circle, right? You end up in this error, essentially. It's the wrong way to be thinking. But if we actually break down what's moving the price, which is the supply and the demand, we already know that the supply of XRP is dwindling down. Just take Coinbase as an example, had 970 million XRP in its reserves. It now has 16 million. Yes, you heard that right, 970 million down to 16 million XRP tokens. The supply is shrinking, it is dwindling across all of the exchanges. Then we can factor in the demand side. If we know that the supply is shrinking and we know that there's a potential catalyst to increase the demand, well, you know that the price is going to be shooting up. Now, most recently, during this crash that we had for XRP down to $1.25, we noticed that it was only $100 million of buying pressure that came back in, taking the price from $1.25 to $2.40-ish. Now, that was over a 1000x multiplier that got added to the market cap, right? $100 million added $100 billion to the market cap. And so when we think about money coming in, it's not $1 in equals $1 of market cap. There's a multiplication factor here. Now, in the case of the recent crash, it was 1000x, but we have noted other multipliers over the last several months. 500x here, 200x there. On any given day, that metric changes depending on the order books, the amount of people buying and selling, the actual liquidity of the market. Now, I'm bringing all of this up now to talk about how the mechanics of the market are being completely ignored by a lot of the naysayers in terms of crypto Twitter. A lot of this is probably because they don't fully understand economics 101 to understand what's actually moving the price, to understand that market cap is just a byproduct of everything else, right? So when we really break down the mechanics of the market, then we do actually have a really strong chance to see some pretty phenomenal market cap calculations, which I think could potentially flip Ethereum, even if it is only temporary. Now, let me just hit pause here for a second and share something very important for anyone trading or holding crypto during all of these crazy times, right? You should always have a backup plan. Now, this bull run, if it heats up like we expect, things are going to get chaotic. And I'm not just talking about the price swings either. I'm talking about the actual exchanges. Now, if you were around in previous bull runs, then you know that exchanges can go down or freeze right when you need them the most. It's always the worst possible time or the worst feeling as well, right? XRP is pumping and you might be trying to take some profits or move funds around and suddenly the exchange that you've trusted is offline or has withdrawal issues. Now, I've learned this the hard way a fair few times a while back. Now, I have a strategy. I sign up and I KYC on as many different crypto exchanges as I possibly can. Basically, I have accounts on all of the major platforms that I trust. Think of it like having plan A, plan B, plan C for trading. Now, for example, I've been using things like LBank, Blowfin, BitGet, that are kind of like my go-to kind of exchanges. And I do have affiliate links for all of these that support the channel. Now, as one of my kind of newer options that's kind of been kind of pretty decent so far that I've been testing is LBank and Kraken. I also keep BitGet account very handy. It's kind of one of my go-to for my short-term trades. So I have affiliate links for all of these. There's a link in the description that takes you to our website. On my website, I list all of the exchanges that I use and trust myself. They're all affiliate links, and if you do sign up and trade on them, then it does support the channel here. The point is this: I don't want to be stuck in a situation where I need to trade or cash out, but I can't because one of these sites goes down. So by having multiple exchanges ready to go, I can jump between them if one has issues. Now, all of my affiliate links, for the exchanges that I personally use are on my website, as I said. The link is in the description. You can feel free to check them out. And of course, using those links, it does support the channel here. But more importantly, I genuinely recommend being prepared with multiple accounts. In crypto, access is absolutely everything here. And when the window to act is short, you're going to thank yourself for having a backup door to exit or even enter. All right, let's get back to the main storyline, right? The XRP versus Ethereum drama. Now, after weighing all of the evidence, here's kind of where I end up. Maybe Alex Cobb is a little bit optimistic calling XRP's next move an Ethereum killer. It makes for a great headline. Heck, it made a great hook for videos, right? But the reality is that Ethereum isn't going to go down quietly. It's going to kind of be like calling one boxer the champion killer, right? The reigning champ is still, in the ring and very much alive, right? So Ethereum has thousands of developers. It's got countless of projects and it has a very big community behind it. It's not just a name on a leaderboard, right? It is a whole ecosystem at the end of the day. So in order to kill Ethereum, XRP would not only need a bit of a price surge, it would also need to steal a lot of Ethereum's thunder in terms of usage and adoption if it wanted to sustain being in that number 2 spot. And I don't really see that kind of thing happening overnight. However, and this is rather important, it does not mean that XRP can't briefly become number 2 on some kind of spectacular rise. In fact, based on patterns that we've talked about, I would expect XRP to have a major run and potentially flip Ethereum for another short spell. It might already be starting by the time you even watch this video. Who knows, right? But if XRP goes to $5, $6, $10, $27, well, that's going to be life-changing for a whole lot of people. It would also reinforce XRP's place in the crypto hierarchy, maybe solidifying it as a permanent top 3 cryptocurrency, but also maybe briefly taking that second spot. And it would be a pretty big deal. Even without flipping ETH longer term, XRP could still end up as the best performing major coin of the cycle if that historical pattern plays on out again. It's kind of funny, right? Because we frame it as killing Ethereum, but maybe it's not about Ethereum at all. Maybe it's actually just about XRP finally fulfilling its own potential, right? Reaching heights that we always suspected that it actually could, regardless of whatever Ethereum is actually doing. I mean, I know I'm not paying that much attention to whatever Ethereum is doing. I don't use Ethereum. I don't know anyone who uses Ethereum. We're all using other layer 2 solutions on ETH, or we're looking at other cheaper, more faster and better L1s. I don't know people who actually use Ethereum at this point, to be fair and for the record. Anyway, as an XRP holder, that thought kind of makes me a little bit happy that XRP has its own thing going for it. I don't actually care about what Ethereum is doing. I don't need XRP to dethrone ETH either to consider it a success, right? I couldn't care less about what Ethereum is doing. Now, if XRP thrives and maybe hits a new all-time high well beyond the previous kind of 384, well, that's going to be a huge win in my own book. Overtaking ETH would just be the icing on the cake, or the cherry on the sundae. Sweet, bragging rights, icing if you will, but it's not the cake itself, is it? Right? The cake is XRP proving its worth after years of being underestimated. So, will XRP's next leg up be the one that knocks out Ethereum? My honest take is it probably won't knock it out, no. It might take that second spot for another brief spell, but that'll probably be about it. Ethereum will probably just take it back. Ethereum's corner is strong, but XRP might just land some serious punches for sure, enough to scare Ethereum for a short spell, and enough to make all of us XRP believers a little bit glad that we held on. In a way, the narrative of Ethereum killer could simply just morph into XRP champion of this cycle, right? Perhaps XRP doesn't even need to wear that number 2 crown to even change the game. Just the act of kind of closing the gap would in fact turn a fair few heads. And who knows, in a future cycle, maybe the flippening odds are better that it keeps the second spot, because I do see a world in the future where Bitcoin is not number 1 and Ethereum is not number 2. I mean, we just think to the .com era, right? Where is Yahoo now? Where is Ask Jeeves? Where is Nokia? Where is BlackBerry, right? We know that first mover advantage is good for a while, but if they don't continue to innovate and you don't solve any real world problems, then you're not going to stay there forever. And I think it's inevitable that Bitcoin will lose its top spot. It sounds crazy today, but it is an inevitability, simply because if we see blockchain and Web3 expand in the way that we want to, with smart contracts, real world asset tokenization, then those sectors and everything that's going on in Web3, it has to dwarf that of Bitcoin. Bitcoin will only grow at certain rates of speed. So for now, the way I see it is, sure, it's great to have Bitcoin number 1, it's great to have Ethereum at number 2, but like the .com era, things will change, and it is, in my opinion, inevitable. One more thing, right? Because if you are into discussing all of these kinds of possibilities, even the obscure idea that, Ethereum or Bitcoin will inevitably lose their spots in the rankings, then, I think it's probably worth jumping into our Discord server, right? Because I want to invite you to the community, right? We do have a free educational Discord server. The link is in the description below. It's basically where we hang out, we share the insights, we debate the news, and we help each other navigate the crazy crypto world. It's totally free, right? We just made it to have a friendly place for learning and for sharing. So if that sounds like your vibe, you can come on in. We'd love to hear your take on this whole XRP versus ETH thing in there, or any other topic really. At the end of the day, right, we won't know who's right. The hopium-filled Ethereum killer crowd, or the cautious maybe next time crowd, until it actually plays on out. And that's kind of the beauty of this, right? The story is still being written in real time. I started the video not knowing what I would find here, and I'm ending it with a deeper appreciation of both XRP's potential and the importance of staying grounded. Optimistic but realistic. That's kind of my stance. Now, XRP's next chapter is about to unfold, and whether it topples a giant or just grows into a giant itself, I'm going to be here for it. It's kind of like watching your favorite team in the finals. Win or lose, you're invested in the journey. So thanks for coming along on this adventure with me. It's been a bit of a personal one, and I hope that you have found it a bit eye-opening just like I did. If you've enjoyed this journey, learned something new, then you can smash that like button for me, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next one.